I will never forget the sound that woke me up, that dawn in the old farmhouse where I've lived alone ever since I inherited the property from my grandparents. The blast was so powerful, it made the antique windows on the first floor rattle, as if a tractor had crashed into the barn. I shot up in bed, my ribs still echoing with the impact. I grabbed my flashlight, opened the back door, and the moment my foot touched the damp earth of the backyard, I saw her. There, in the middle of the dark grass surrounding my pens, a massive figure stood out against the pale moonlight. It was a gigantic woman and possibly real, tied up on my own land as if she had fallen from the sky. I took another step, stunned. The shaky beam of my flashlight traced her legs long, like flexible tree trunks, her perfectly proportioned torso, and her face half buried in the tall grass. Her skin glistened with the dawn's humidity, and her chest rose and fell with deep breaths that made the air vibrate. There was nothing dreamlike or illusory about her. She was a woman at least 10 meters tall, lying on the ground of my farm, immobilized by thick ropes that someone or something had tied around her arms and waist. And in the stillness of the countryside, I could swear I heard her whisper my name. I froze, breathing in the scent of wet earth mixed with the subtle floral aroma that came from her like a whisper from a lost summer. Before we begin, I ask that you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us where in the world you're listening from. This helps us bring you more stories like this. Let's go. Her face, partly covered by dark, damp strands of hair, was so breathtaking it left me speechless. But what struck me most was that she was moving. Her breathing pushed the grass around her face, and from her slightly parted lips escaped murmurs I couldn't understand. "Are you alive?" I asked, my voice so shaky it didn't sound like mine. Her eyes opened. Two immense turquoise spheres filled with a glow that seemed to hold memory, exhaustion, and something else. Something like recognition. The moonlight reflected in them, and for an instant, I had the irrational feeling that she was looking at me not as a stranger, but as someone expected. She inhaled deeply, and the air around me trembled as if a warm gust had risen from the center of the earth. At last, she said in a deep, soft, enveloping murmur, "I thought you'd take longer to come out." I swallowed hard. The night field, always so quiet, now seemed to be holding its breath with me. The fireflies that usually gathered near the old mill fluttered around her body as if they recognized her. "Who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you tied up on my farm?" I asked, my flashlight trembling in my hands. She tilted her head slightly, letting the moon outline the soft curves of her face. She looked at me with an expression that mixed exhaustion and a tenderness I couldn't quite explain, as if my being there meant something far greater than a simple coincidence. "My name doesn't matter yet," she replied. "But you are already ready." That sentence sent a chill through me. Ready for what? For whom? "I don't know you," I said, though my own words seemed to fall apart in the air. "I don't know what that means." She closed her eyes for a second, as if remembering something long and painful. When she opened them again, a mysterious spark lit her gaze. "You don't remember, but that will change. The moment has arrived, and what comes next depends on you." The ropes holding her creaked as she tried to move an arm. She didn't do it to break free, but to show me she was real, that she was there for a specific reason. Her hand, about the size of a small car, pressed into the dirt, releasing a fresh scent of mud and crushed grass. "Why me?" I finally asked, unable to hide the tremor in my voice. She smiled softly, as if she had known my doubts long before I had them. "Because you're the only one who can release what's coming. And because I belong to you more than you imagine." My knees nearly gave out. A warm breeze, like a giant sigh, washed over me as she added, "You're ready for the truth." And under the bluish moonlight over my old farm, I knew nothing in my life would ever be the same again. The ground was still trembling faintly beneath my feet as I struggled to process the impossible. The giant woman was still there, immense, breathing with difficulty, as if the weight of her own body and the ropes binding her were draining her more and more with every passing moment. The flashlight in my hand flickered, and for a second I thought the darkness would swallow me along with this mystery. But then she spoke again. Her tones softer, now almost fragile, which contrasted with her colossal size. "Don't be afraid," she murmured. "If I'd wanted to harm you, you wouldn't be standing here." Her voice carried a calm that cut straight through me, as if that deep, resonant sound could quiet the trembling running through my body. Even so, I took a step back, my heart racing. The scene on my farm was too surreal. The barn in the distance, the shadows of old trees swaying with the wind, and her, a woman at least 10 meters tall, up like some mythological creature captured in an ancient tale. "Who did this to you?" I asked, pointing at the ropes wrapped around her enormous wrists. They were thick, made of a material I didn't recognize, like braided plant fibers woven with something metallic. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. She exhaled slowly, and the warm breeze she produced stirred my shirt. Others like me, but not like me. Her gaze drifted away from mine, as if looking at the empty pens brought back memories she wished she could bury. Some believe that my existence is a risk. Others believe I am a power that shouldn't awaken. My fingers tightened around the flashlight. "Awaken? What are you talking about?" She looked at me again, and in that instant, it felt like the world had shrunk to just two presences under the moonlight. An ordinary man with dirt on his boots, and a giant woman who seemed to hide an ocean of secrets in her eyes. Before I answer, she said, "I need you to come closer." Those words froze me. Getting close to her meant stepping into the reach of her hands, her arms, all that overwhelming strength that could destroy my house with a single movement. "For what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "So you can see," she murmured, tilting her face toward me without moving her body. "So you understand I'm not an accident on your farm, that I didn't fall here by chance." My breath hitched. My boots crunched against the dirt as, almost unwillingly, I took a step toward her. It was as if some deep, hidden part of me already knew that approaching her was inevitable. When I was close enough, she lowered her left hand with visible effort. The ropes tightened, leaving marks in her skin, and a flash of pain crossed her face. My first instinct was to step back, but her voice stopped me. "Don't be afraid," she said. "Just look." And then I saw what she wanted to show me. On her wrist, just below the ropes, there was a symbol, a glowing mark, soft and faint, like a tattoo made of light. It shimmered in bluish and silvery tones, and although the moon lit the field, that mark seemed to generate its own pulsing, alive. "What is that?" I asked, completely fascinated. "A union," she replied. "A bond I cannot break on my own. A bond that exists with you, even if you don't understand it yet." The air around me seemed to stop. My thoughts did too, with me. I don't know you." She smiled with a beautiful sadness. "But I have known you long before this. Not here, not now, not in this way." A gust of wind swept across the farm, making the old mill creak. The shadows shifted as if they were listening to our conversation. And for a moment, I felt something strange, like an ancient presence stirring deep inside my chest. As if some part of me recognized that light on her skin. "There is more," she said, closing her eyes softly. "But I can't tell you while I'm tied." My heart skipped. I understood what she meant, but I refused to fully accept it. "You want me to free you?" I asked in a low voice. She opened her eyes. And for the first time, I didn't see exhaustion or only hope. "Only you can." I stood there, my flashlight nearly dead, the entire night watching us. And a massive truth beginning to wrap itself around me. As if the farm had become the stage for something that had waited centuries to begin. The silence on the farm grew so deep, it felt like it had a breath of its own. As if the earth, the trees, and the wind were all watching my next move. The giant woman lay there, immense, with the bluish light of her mark pulsing softly beneath the ropes. That hypnotic glow made the darkness around us feel less threatening. And at the same time, even more mysterious. I leaned in a little, trying to understand how a symbol like that could have anything to do with me. But the more I looked at it, the more I felt an echo inside my chest, as if some ancient memory were waking up without my permission. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. The giant opened her eyes. That deep, serene turquoise gaze settled on me with an unexpected tenderness. It's natural. Fear is part of the path to what's true, but you're not alone. I looked at her bound arms. The ropes, beautiful in their craftsmanship, seemed cruel, digging into her luminous skin. There was something about them, a braided pattern with a faint metallic shimmer. Nothing like anything I'd ever seen in my rural life. Who tied you? I asked again, this time with a firmer tone. Her breathing slowed, turning almost melancholic. Those who forgot what we are, those who fear that my awakening will mean theirs. Theirs, I don't understand. You will, she murmured, if you choose to free me. The flashlight finally died, letting the moon take full control of the scene. The silver light washed over her face, highlighting every line, every shadow, every extraordinary feature. She was beautiful in a way that didn't belong to this world, and yet her expression was painfully human. I knelt to examine the closest rope. It was as thick as my arm and braided with strips of a material that looked both plant-like and mineral. When I touched it, I felt a faint pulse, almost as if it were alive. These ropes, they're not normal, I said. She gave a slight nod. They're made to contain those of my lineage. They can't be broken by force, only by choice. Choice. Your choice, she said softly. I fell silent, unsure of what to do. If I freed her, I could be releasing something I didn't understand. A massive being unknown, with a power I couldn't measure. But if I didn't free her, something inside me whispered that I would be making an equally grave mistake. What happens if I release you? I asked, more to myself than to her. Her gaze warmed with a deep, steady glow. Then the truth will open itself to you, and I will be able to protect you the way I was destined to. A light breeze rustled the leaves of the trees. The shadows shifted as if they were listening to every word. I took the work knife I always carry on my belt when walking around the farm. The blade caught the moonlight, throwing a white gleam across the yard. I approached the rope, not touching it yet. The giant watched my every movement not with anxiety, but with hope, and something else. Something like a quiet, solemn pride. If I do this, I said, my heart pounding like a runaway horse, I want the truth, all of it, and you will have it, she replied. I owe it to you. I leaned over the rope and pressed the blade against the material. I expected resistance, hardness, something impossible to cut. But what happened stole the breath from my lungs. The rope reacted. Its pulse quickened like a heartbeat, jolting under my touch. The ordinary metal blade began to sink into it, as if it were cutting through solid light instead of fiber. A thin blue spark ran along the rope like a tiny bolt of lightning, and the mark on her wrist answered with an identical pulse. The giant inhaled deeply, closing her eyes. That's it, she murmured. Only you could do it. With controlled effort, I pressed harder. The rope made a strange sound, a torn whisper, and finally, it broke. It fell onto the ground as if its inner life had slipped away, becoming inert like any ordinary strand of fiber. The mark on her skin flared intensely for a second, flooding the yard with a warm, bluish light that washed over me completely. I felt a silent impact in my chest, a heartbeat that wasn't mine, and for that instant, I knew. I was connected to her in a way I couldn't explain. The giant opened her eyes. They were even brighter than before. One is free, she said. But there are more. My breath trembled. What happens now? Her answer was soft but carried deep weight. Now your awakening begins. The whole field seemed to shudder at that moment, as if something in the darkness had heard her words and decided to come closer. The bluish light that had burst out when the first rope broke was still lingering in the air. As if the glow refused to leave completely, it settled over the soil of the farm, tinting everything with an unreal hue that made every fence, every tree, and every tool look like part of some ancient dream. I still had the knife in my hand, but I could barely feel it. My fingers were numb from the intensity of the moment. The giant woman moved her newly freed wrist. Her hand, huge, elegant, brushed the damp grass with surprising delicacy. I knew she could have crushed the ground with a single motion, but she didn't. She moved with the gentleness of someone who has learned to carry an invisible weight. "Thank you," she murmured. Her voice was more open, stronger, now that one of her restraints had fallen away. "Your decision has awakened what was asleep." I stepped back slightly, looking at the remaining ropes that kept her immobilized. One bound her other arm, two crossed over her torso, and another tied her long legs, which rested against the back fence. They all glowed faintly, as if they had felt the loss of their first sister. "What do these bindings mean?" I asked. "Why did they put so many on you?" She took a deep breath. The moon lit her face where exhaustion and hope blended into soft lines. "Each one represents a seal, a limit placed to keep my essence under control. Those who made them feared what my full awakening would represent. And what would it represent?" I pressed. Her gaze settled on me, and I felt the weight of centuries in her answer. Balance, memory, and the restoration of something that was broken long before you were born. A shiver ran down my spine. The word restoration echoed inside me with a strange resonance, as if I had heard the idea before. Somewhere deeper than my own mind. "What does that have to do with me?" I whispered. "Everything," she said. "You are the key to that balance. Not because you are strong or wise or special in any human sense, but because you carry something inside you. Something that was given to me long ago." I stood there silently, not knowing what to do with her words. Part of me wanted to reject it, run back to the house, lock the door, and pretend the night had been a hallucination. But another part deeper, quieter knew she wasn't lying. A crack sounded in the darkness, snapping me out of my thoughts. It came from the edge of the forest where the densest trees began. I turned immediately, pointing my dead flashlight by instinct, as if its powerless beam could reveal something. "What was that?" I asked. The giant closed her eyes, concentrating. Her breathing tightened. "We are not alone. My captors know that one of the ropes has broken. They feel the loss of the seal, and they will come." A knot of unease twisted in my chest. "They'll come here, to my farm." "That was their plan from the beginning," she replied, opening her eyes with a decisive glow. "That's why they left me in this place, because they knew sooner or later you would find me. But why me? I'm just a man. I have nothing to do with giants or lost lineages." Or, she raised her free hand gently, as if calming a storm building inside me. Her finger large as a column brushed the air near my face without touching me, and even so, I felt her warmth. "Listen to me. You are not a warrior or a sage. You are not chosen by fate or prophecy. You are my bond. The link that completes me, and that is more powerful than any force." I swallowed hard. "How can I help you?" "I don't know anything about your world. Your presence already helps," she said. "But I need you to finish what you started." I looked at the other ropes. Each one pulsed slowly, tensely, as if resisting my touch. The thought of breaking them filled me with dread. What exactly was I releasing? Her or something else? The crack in the forest came again. Closer, more deliberate. "They are coming," she said, this time with a tone that sounded almost protective. "And if they find me like this, incapacitated, they won't hesitate to bind me again. Or destroy me." My heart was pounding uncontrollably. I gripped the knife tighter. I knew I was one step away from changing my life forever. If what you're saying is true, if I really am part of this, then I'm going to finish freeing you. The turquoise light in her eyes expanded, glowing with an emotion I couldn't name. "I'm with you," she said, her voice so soft it sent a shiver through me. I stepped toward the second rope. Its pulse quickened as it sensed my presence. And just as the blade touched the glowing surface, a sound rose from the forest deep, guttural, enormous enough to make the ground tremble. A voice? A voice that was not human and not friendly. The giant's eyes flew open wide. They're already here. The sound rolled over the farm like living thunder. So close, the air seemed to break apart in invisible waves. My legs trembled. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't an engine. It was a deep voice, charged with intention. And it came from the darkness of the forest bordering my property. The giant woman lifted her head, her muscles tightening as if she could hear far better than I could. The turquoise glow in her eyes intensified, lighting up her expression of alertness. "Listen to me," she said urgently. "Only 2 ropes remain. If they find me like this, there won't be time. You must free me now." "Who are they?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer wouldn't bring me any comfort. "The fallen guardians, those who forgot we were created to protect, not dominate. Now they fear what I am, and what I can awaken in you." My throat tightened with a knot of fear, but something stronger than fear rose inside me, an unexpected certainty, deep and undeniable, that I couldn't abandon her. Not after everything I had seen. Not after what I felt when I broke that first rope. I stepped toward the rope across her torso. Its pulse was faster, like the heartbeat of something panicked. I grabbed the knife. The blade trembled between my fingers, but even so, I pressed it against the glowing fiber. A broken sound came from the forest. Footsteps, many heavy. The ground began to vibrate, as if several massive creatures were moving through the trees. The giant closed her eyes, enduring the pain as the rope reacted to my touch. They can already feel that I'm awakening. "Hurry!" I pushed with all my strength. The rope flared, exploded in a burst of intense blue light, and fell to the ground like a piece of dead night. The glow that rose from the mark on her chest lit up the entire farm as if dawn had arrived early. Then something happened that stole the breath from my lungs. For an instant, I felt her heart. Not physically, but in my own chest, as if a second pulse had synchronized with mine. An ancient rhythm, powerful, filled with an emotion I couldn't understand, but that shook me to my core. She opened her eyes. They were an ocean of light. "Only one more," she whispered. "My legs. You must hurry." I rushed toward the final rope. It was wrapped around her massive thighs, which pushed up against the wooden fence. This rope glowed brighter than the others, as if it knew it was the last barrier between her and freedom. The forest roared again. And then I saw them. Between the trees, colossal shadows advanced toward the farm. They were taller even than her. Huge humanoid silhouettes with rigid, stone-like limbs, like living statues. Their eyes glowed a dull yellow, emotionless, unquestioning. One of them spoke with a voice that rumbled like an avalanche. "Stop. That being must not be freed." My body froze. The enemy giant took another step, snapping a tree as if it were a dry twig. The giant woman I was trying to free exhaled firmly, despite still being tied down. "Don't listen to their words," she murmured forcefully. "They no longer remember what we were. You are my bond. Only you can decide." "And what if they're telling the truth?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Then they wouldn't be here with chains instead of hands." She was right. Those beings weren't here to talk. They were here to capture her or destroy her. The knife trembled in my hand. I stepped toward the final rope. The fallen guardian lifted a massive arm. The earth shook. My entire farm seemed to tilt beneath the weight. "Humans must not interfere," it growled. And then something unexpected happened. The giant woman turned her face toward me. Her gaze was pure, radiant, and for the first time since I'd found her, there was no pain or exhaustion in her eyes. Only trust. "I trust you," she said softly. "Do it." Those words struck through me like lightning. With a cry I didn't know I had inside me, I drove the blade with all my strength into the final rope. The material tightened, vibrated, then burst in a blue flash so bright it forced my eyes shut. When I opened them, she was no longer bound. The giant woman rose. Her colossal figure stood tall under the moon, magnificent, imposing, alive. Her dark hair fell in cascades over her shoulders, stirred by an energy that made the air vibrate. The fallen guardians froze in place. The light on her body, the same light I had seen in that first symbol, spread like blue fire across every inch of her skin. It was an awakening. That was what I had unleashed. Something ancient. Something that didn't belong to oblivion. She took a step forward. The earth trembled. But her voice was soft as water. I will not sleep again. The guardians stepped back. For the first time, they hesitated. She extended a massive hand toward me. Not to grab me, not to lift me, just to let me know I wasn't alone. Thank you, she said, with an emotion I had never heard from her before. What comes now? We'll face it together. My chest burned. Not from fear, from a new feeling, vast, immense, impossible to name. The forest fell silent. The guardians watched. The night held its breath, and I knew I had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. A new world was beginning. One where I was no longer just a farmer, and she was no longer a stranger fallen from the sky. We were something else, something that was only beginning to awaken. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. It really helps us bring more enchanting stories like this to brighten your day. And tell us in the comments what city in the world you're listening from. See you next time.